So there's a difference between leadership and management. Yeah.
Can I just say something about management too? When I first got into the teaching profession, everybody was like, "Your classroom management, classroom management." I always would bring it back to behavior. But what I found is teachers manage everything in the room. If they don't come into your room in the right way, you're going to spend 5 or 10 minutes, calming them down. So you really have to think about the fact that how the room is set up, what you want them to do that day. You manage everything.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say.
Well, no, but I think that's exactly what this is talking about with leadership. Okay, so that leadership idea that's exactly what we're talking about. Like, you need to lead and manage your classroom, and that leadership part is the vision. Is what is it supposed to look like? What's going to make that classroom work, and what do you need? What do you need to make your classroom successful? And so sharing that vision, building a team, whether it's with your students or colleagues, renewing the commitment to the vision, celebrating success, and it's about your kids. It's about people. It's not about having an authoritarian classroom where if kids look at you the wrong way, they're going down to the office. It's not about that. It's about them and trying to create an environment that's going to be supportive of them. And so, in terms of management, it's not about. I don't like thinking about management as like rules. Rules are part of it, but management isn't about controlling kids, right? It's about setting up an environment where kids can learn and be successful. And so having schedules, knowing the little details and being on top of those, and this is, that was a hard experience for me to learn my first year teaching, was that you can't just expect that if you let those kids run, they're going to be okay, right? That you need to make sure that those details are being accounted for. We can't just say, okay, work in groups. They're not adult learners. They're not adult learners. Preparing materials, how does your classroom need to be set up today? Is it different today than it might be tomorrow? Orchestrating movement. Okay, guys, we're going to practice this moving thing again. Everybody sit back down. It took you too long. All right, let's try again. You've got 5 seconds to get to your tables. And practicing those routines with the kids. And if they mess up, going back and saying, okay, we're getting a little off. Let's go back and refocus. So practicing those routines at the beginning of the year and again, refreshers throughout the year. And it's about the mechanics of a classroom. So the leadership, the vision is about what do I want to do for these kids in this class, and the mechanics, how it actually happens, that's the management part. So where kind of the rubber hits the road in the classroom, that's where you're thinking about management, not leadership as much. So you first need to be a leader, and once you have that leadership part down, then you can be a manager of your classroom. And so tying this into qualities of effective teachers, we want to work with students as opposed to trying to do things to or for them. So it's about being, again, with them. Allowing students to participate in decision making, so having them help set up rules at the beginning of the year. What is it that you guys need to be successful in this classroom? Paying attention and listening to them. A lot of times they've got some valid points about the way the classroom is running and maybe what they need. Demonstrate a sense of fun and willingness to play or participate. Get involved if your kids are working in groups, get involved. Interact. Productive interactions involve giving them responsibility and respect. We want to teach them as adults when appropriate. Treat them as adults when appropriate. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not appropriate to treat them as adults. But when we can, especially in adolescence, you're learning to be an adult right now. So when is it that I can give you extra responsibility? When is it that I can build that in to make you feel more like an adult? And so, again, this is what we're talking about with managing the details. All right, so let's take a second and give you guys an idea to brainstorm some things in terms of how you feel like you can help the management and leadership of your classrooms and your school's classrooms. Some ways to really implement that, things you could do with your teachers. All right, so we've got about 20 minutes left. So we'll get mostly through mindset here, and then we'll pick up with the last couple when we come back after the break. But growth mindset, and this is really something I've been reading more and more about recently, and something that I see so much value in, because I think what she's talking about with this, and her name's Carol Dweck, and she's a psychologist and has done studies on the mindset that we have and how that impacts our achievement. And so the big ideas that she talks about, and this comes from kind of a rehashing of this from Carol Tomlinson, there's a critical role of creating tasks that support developing a growth mindset. And so what we're trying to do is create tasks that are going to actually help our students see that they can improve, that they can grow, that they can become a better learner. We want to help our kids belong to a discipline in order to invest in it. And so like a lot of times we teach our subject like it's an isolated set of facts and skills that you need to know. But we never really invite kids to invest in the discipline that we're teaching. We don't invite them to think about what are the big ideas about what we teach. Why is this meaningful? Why is this important? And once kids can see themselves in the discipline and their relationship to the discipline, there tends to be more buy-in too. So we want to help them kind of own what we're teaching them a little bit. We want to develop resilience, move from a fixed to a growth mindset. And this idea of resilience is going to come up again when we watch the second half of that Gospel for Teens. Is how do we build resilience within kids? You know, how do we make them overcome the fact that you might have always struggled with this, or you've got this going on at home, or whatever else it is? And the culture of excellence is a manifestation of and root to a growth mindset. And so we're really trying to focus on the fact that we expect excellence. And we're going to help you get there, but we expect it of you. And so that can help kids lead to a growth mindset as well. And a lot of this comes from our teaching mindset. And I've heard it said before, are you a window teacher or are you a mirror teacher? So the window teachers, they might look out the window and say, you've got this going on, you're coming to school with this, you do this, and there's nothing I can do about it. You are who you are. And then if you're a mirror teacher, you look in the mirror and say, okay, you've got all these things, but you're with me now. What can I do to help you learn? And it's really just a different focus. Is that we don't necessarily, and I'm not saying that those things aren't difficult to overcome, but if you focus on all those things as opposed to what can you do with this student while they're in your class, then it's going to make teaching a lot tougher. And so this is a quick, there's a set of just 6 belief statements there. And so what I want you guys to do is just to take a second to think whether you agree or disagree, and then any implications for your instruction that are there. So for the first one, every student is worthy of dignity and respect. Do you agree or disagree? And then how do you feel like that impacts your instruction or what you do in the classroom? Okay?
What do you want us to do with this? Discuss it as a group?
I was thinking just individually, and then if you want to have a second at the end just to talk about them. An interesting way to use this, if you were to maybe take it back to your school, would be to give this to teachers, maybe at the beginning of the year, and then whether it's peer observations or administrator evaluations, things like that, is to look for evidence of this. Because did anybody disagree with any of these? Right? Everybody agrees. But in every school I go into, you see evidence of disagreement. You know? And that's not all teachers. There's certainly plenty of teachers who totally adhere to this all the time. But I always see the fact that people, okay, thank you. That people have that sort of that positive, they want to have that positive outlook, but when it comes into actual, like where the rubber hits the road in the classroom, their actions, what they do, doesn't reflect that. And so there's almost a gap between what we believe and what we're implementing, what we're actually doing in the classroom. So to get to that point, what are some implications that you guys felt for any of these? How does it affect your instruction, the implications for it in your classroom?